She looked like she was pregnant with 30 babies. Then vet shows mom. The vet put down her instruments and looked at the results again. She'd looked at them several times and the ultrasound confirmed it, but in all her years as a vet, she'd never encountered something like this. She had a million questions, but the only thing she was sure about was that this dog needed immediate attention. Chris and Marisa had traveled to many different animal shelters to find a dog to adopt. They knew that out there was a perfect match for them, but it was difficult. She had promised Chris that they would only adopt one dog, but when she saw the pregnant dog giving her a mournful look, she knew what she had to do. As soon as she saw them, the dog came closer and began licking their hands. Her belly, swollen with puppies, was huge, and Marisa knew that she deserved a proper, loving home. There was no doubt that this was the dog that she and Chris would adopt, but they had no idea what they were about to learn, and it would change everything. Chris and Marisa would soon discover that being pregnant at a shelter wasn't the only tragic part of the dog's life. The pit bull named Story had been owned by someone who ran a backyard breeding business. However, when it became apparent how expensive housing, feeding, and caring for her and her pups would be, they opted to instead drop her at the shelter. Marisa couldn't help but cry as she listened to the tragic story. The couple immediately knew that this dog deserved a proper home and that she should be given all the affection in the world, especially considering her past. It was obvious that the shelter was no place for a dog in her condition. They promptly adopted her in hopes of giving her a better life. However, a trip to the vet would change everything. As if things didn't already seem perfect enough, Chris and Marisa shared a love of pit bulls. They'd rescued several other pit bulls in the past as they both loved the dog breed. In case you are wondering how many dogs they currently have, it's no less than 10 pit bulls. You can see 8 of them in this photo. It's important for a dog to have a good bed, but when you have as many dogs as Chris and Marisa do, space becomes a problem. To solve this, Chris built a 7-foot wide and 14-foot long mega bed for the dogs. As he stated in an interview with Today, at nighttime all the dogs want to sleep on the bed, and sometimes it becomes too cluttered, and we end up being pushed off the bed or sleeping on the couch, so we built a mega bed. The couple loves the pit bull breed and knows that there is more that they can do for them, as pit bulls are a sadly misunderstood breed. There are very strict laws regarding owning pit bulls. In fact, they're downright outlawed in some states. The couple naturally had a lot of experience with this breed of dog, but even they weren't ready for what was about to unfold. No one was. Marisa has admitted that she'd broken up with past partners because they simply didn't understand her obsession with dogs, nor did they support her in it. Chris, however, not only understood and supported her dream, but he actually shared it with her. The couple's shared love not only for each other but also for dogs seemed like a perfect match. Being together only saw their passion for dogs increasing. The couple adores our canine friends, so it might seem strange that they'd think twice. So why did they? Animal shelters worldwide have to deal with more than insufficient resources, however. Naturally, every shelter dreams of being able to care for all the animals they take in, but reality isn't that kind. When Chris and Marisa visited Pibbles and More Animal Rescue, they were stunned by how many pit bulls there were. They had no idea that one such pit bull was about to change their lives forever. Sadly, pit bulls have a terribly unkind reputation. Due to their stocky build and large heads, many consider them much more aggressive than they in fact are. This, coupled with the strict laws about owning pit bulls, is one of the reasons why so many end up in shelters. The stigma surrounding these dogs was nothing new to the couple. They knew the truth about these dogs. As a result, they had adopted numerous pit bulls in the past as their means and resources allowed. They'd never seen anything in their own dogs to warrant their bad reputation. They could never have expected what fate had in store. Despite what many believe, studies have found no proof to support the bad reputation. As with any other breed, it all comes down to how the animal was treated. Pit bulls are no more predisposed to being aggressive than, say, a Labrador. However, Story was about to change everything they thought they knew and understood about pit bulls. While filling out the forms to adopt Story, the staff told the couple that she was very close to giving birth. In fact, she was actually overdue already. No one could explain why she hadn't given birth yet despite how clearly ready she was. It was a complicated situation that no one really understood. Knowing how serious this situation could be, the couple knew that they might be forced into a literal life or death choice for the dog and her unborn puppies. It was a big decision and the couple knew they couldn't rush it. However, there wasn't really any time to do so. The stakes also made it worse. Even though time was of the essence, the couple knew that they had to discuss things for a moment. They couldn't rush in blindly, but they also couldn't stand idly by. While they were discussing things, Story did something that made the decision for them. She quietly walked over to the couple and placed her head on Marisa's knee and looked mournfully at her. As happy as she was to bring Story home, Marisa knew things were very complicated. It not only meant adding one more member to their family, it potentially meant more. As much difficulty as Marisa was having with the situation, news lay around the corner, news that changed things even more. Even though they were aware that keeping Story would mean taking care of an additional 10 dogs, they didn't want the pregnant dog mama to be at the shelter for longer than she needed to. Marisa wanted to help Story and give her a safe space to deliver the pups. The couple started talking about it and weighed the pros and cons of bringing home Story. Without a doubt, it wasn't a practical idea. However, Chris suggested something that made perfect sense for the situation at hand. It sure seemed like their best bet, both for the family and for Story and the pups. He suggested that they would foster Story and her puppies. However, this was only going to be temporary, as the animal rescue team would then look for their forever homes. This was a good idea, since they could not afford to keep more pets with their 8 other dogs. The suggestion was a brilliant one, but the problems did not end there. They still had to find out what was wrong with the pregnancy. What was the reason Story had not yet given birth even though she was close to bursting? This was the next thing they had to tackle. They needed to give the pregnancy the attention it deserved. This was the first time they've ever encountered anything like this. There must be some reason Story was unable or unwilling to give birth to the babies. Chris and Marisa had been worrying about it, so they decided to go to the internet and look for a way to address the issue. Did they find anything of relevance over there? Unfortunately, they did not find a lot of reassuring things online. In fact, they came out even more worried about the situation. Well, this is normally what happens when you look for answers online. Chris and Marisa felt even more anxious about the whole thing. Humans have a tendency to underestimate just how intelligent most animals actually are. When Marisa and Chris started to look for answers, they found out why a dog might resist the delivery of her puppies. They even found a source that seemed to perfectly describe what was happening. What did they learn? Research showed that animals often experience a lot of stress and even trauma when they live in rescue shelters. Of course, pregnant dogs are more vulnerable to this. While shelters have the intention of helping animals in need, they get crowded quickly. A crowded place is not the best environment for a pregnant dog. A loving home such as Chris and Marisa's can make a big difference. Chris and Marisa started to read up about the matter some more and realized things could escalate further. There was a possibility that Story would lose her puppies. Not only that, but she might also lose her life. They certainly had no idea how bad things were. Can you believe that this isn't all? Marisa found out that pregnant dogs experiencing trauma get so worried about the pups that they could choose to refuse delivery completely. This situation happens since they're under the impression that the babies would be at risk. Chris and Marisa were able to tell that this was a precarious situation. They had to bring the pregnant pooch to the vet as soon as they could. This was important if they wanted to ensure the baby's safety. They popped back in the car and drove to the nearest vet. The vet conducted an ultrasound scan on the dog but saw unbelievable results. She shook her head. How could this even be possible? There must have been some kind of mistake one way or the other. However, nothing about the results changed or disappeared, not the shapes nor the numbers. It was true. What she saw there would change things for the couple and the others involved. Then Marisa picked up on the fact that something wasn't right. What was it now? The veterinarian took a deep breath before she delivered the news. She went into an explanation of the abnormality she found in Story's womb. They'd been expecting to see 6 puppies, but this did not align with the ultrasound results. The vet pointed to the outlines and then counted them for the couple. Chris and Marisa then figured out what was happening, and they were now in shock as well. They were told that Story would have 6 puppies, but the ultrasound revealed this wasn't true. What exactly was going on? The vet did not expect this either. She tried to count again, and after this she gave it another round. The results were always the same. At last she figured out there was no choice but to tell them what it was. Chris and Marisa had been expecting 6 puppies, but the vet knew this was wrong. The pregnant dog was carrying not 6 puppies, but 12. Yes, that is twice the number of dogs they were expecting. At any rate, Story had 12 puppies in her womb. How are they going to solve this mess? The lovebirds couldn't believe what they just heard. How could this happen? 6 dogs already sounded like too much, but 12? Clearly, the problem was even more serious than they originally thought. Was Story going to be okay? Was she going to deliver all 12 of her babies? Let's find out. Even the vet had no idea why Story had yet to give birth to her large litter of puppies. At the very least, the ultrasound showed that the puppies were all fine. What a relief! What was next for them? The vet said that the best thing they could do was head home and get ready for the birth. If Story still hadn't given birth after 48 hours, they should return for yet another examination. Chris and Marisa didn't know it at the time, but Story had actually a great reason to wait. You can probably imagine how stressed Chris and Marisa had been at the moment. Story was not only in danger of losing 6 babies, but a dozen babies. They could not help but feel anxious about the following 48 hours. Was Story going to be alright if she failed to deliver the pups in that time frame? It is easy to see that this was a dangerous and terrible situation at the same time. However, there seemed to be nothing they could do for Story. The only thing left to do was make her feel at home. When they went home, Marisa came up with a clever plan. By that point, Chris and Marisa already went through a lot of articles about trauma and stress. They knew how hard things have been on Story. They tried to help her by giving her a very inviting space. Marisa chose a spot in a spare bedroom. She even placed pillows and blankets for the dog. After that, they showed Story her new sanctuary and prayed for the best. Chris and Marisa gave it their all because they wanted to make it just right for the pooch. They even kept track of the room temperature and noise level in there. The couple did not know that something incredible was going to happen there. The two of them headed off to bed for the night and then went to see how Story was doing on waking up. They wanted to see if she was feeling better and more comfortable. As Marisa and Chris headed to the room where they left the pit bull, they could hear some curious noises. They hurriedly entered the bedroom. They didn't expect to see what they laid their eyes on. They entered their spare bedroom. Much to their delight, they found Story in there with her 12 adorable puppies. She was able to deliver them all while the two of them slept. What an incredible sight it was. Marisa and Chris were reduced to tears by what they saw. Who would have thought that Story was finally going to deliver the pups? They were thrilled. Soon enough, they learned just why she waited so long. When dogs give birth to puppies at the shelter, it often becomes stressful for both the mom and the babies. Story was somehow aware that the shelter was not a good place for anyone to give birth in an environment like that. This is the reason she decided to wait for someone like Chris and Marisa. Isn't it incredible that Story only had to spend one whole day, even less, with Chris and Marisa to feel comfortable around them? She was so at home she even delivered her litter of puppies. What made it even more special was the fact that no one understands what was going on. Good job, Story. Story was great when it came to looking after the puppies. Well, what else did you expect from the best dog mother in the entire world? It did not take long before people started to file adoption cases for the dogs, and the couple already knew that they wouldn't get to keep the puppies for a long time. Was Story going to be okay with letting the puppies go? After several weeks, the puppies finally opened their eyes. Marisa and Chris had been enjoying the time they had with a litter of puppies. The babies took over the yard and goofed around with one another. You know what puppies are like. Story was happy to have all of her pups with her. Sadly, the time came for them to say goodbye though. When Story was taken to a good and secure environment, she was able to let her body do the work and deliver the puppies. This was how she got to welcome the puppies, all 12 of them. However, what was next for her and the babies? Let's find out. It seems like Story knew just what she needed to give birth to her babies. All she wanted was a feeling of protection and security. The foster couple managed to give her these things, which was how she birthed her 12 strong puppies. She sure is one smart dog. It's impressive to hear that they managed to find foster parents willing to adopt the puppies when they were 10 weeks old. Chris and Marisa might have adored the babies, but they simply didn't have the means to keep them. They had to give them up for adoption, sadly. It was a heartbreaking moment, but it was the right thing to do. When they were 10 weeks old, the puppies were brought to their new homes. We're glad to hear that, but what would become of Story? The puppies were all in good hands now, but what about their mother? After risking her life for her children, this wonderful mother deserves only the best. It is not at all surprising to hear that the story went viral when it was posted on Facebook. The inspiring story of